Hello everybody, it's me Ross and welcome to another video. Today we're going to get some insight on Paul Cook. He's looking likely to be the new town manager, previously at Wigan and Portsmouth and Chesterfield as well. I'm joined by Jonty to get some insight during his time at Pompey. A very successful time for him, winning the League Two title there before then going on to Wigan. Jonty, thanks for joining me. Your insight on Paul as a manager and his success he had at Pompey.
Thanks very much, Ross. Yeah, I think it's an appointment. When the news first came out on Friday, the reports that it seemed like a really good appointment. I'm really surprised he's not been in a job for this long. Any job that seems to have come up in the Championship and League One over the past season, Cook seems to be one of the front runners for it. And there was a lot of sound that he was going to go and succeed Tony Pulis at Sheffield Wednesday, and a lot of Wednesday fans wanted him, and now it looks like he's off to Ipswich. And I think it's a really smart appointment from Ipswich. Considering how late it is in the season, you can't guarantee that he'll go and do something straight away because there's only 2 months left of the campaign. But he's got such a good pedigree at getting teams promoted, and just doing jobs in really difficult circumstances. And he just seems a really smart appointment for me.
Well, Harry, thank you very much for joining me. We're going to be talking about Paul Cook's time at Wigan. A very successful time for him there, winning the League One title. Your thoughts, your insight on Paul Cook, the manager himself?
I'm just surprised that no other club has snatched him up. Ipswich Town fans won't realise it. Or, maybe some will. But appointing Paul Cook would be the biggest steal, in terms of, I think Sheffield Wednesday were going to appoint him and only offered him a 6-month contract, allegedly. That's why he didn't do it. You should be offering that man multiple years. We would have, if we had the money and our club wasn't in the gutter, most Wigan fans, delusional or not, were convinced he was going to take us to a playoff push. We weren't going to be down at the bottom. Our team was ready for it, and his style of play, because it's nice football to watch, the Paul Cook football. I think especially as well. I don't know much about. I'd be lying if I started saying that I know a lot about Ipswich Town style of play. But in terms of James, I know James Norwood and that kind of stuff. James Norwood is very. Correct me if I'm wrong. Very much the kind of, hot ball holding up and poacher kind of striker, which is very similar, in a way to Will Grigg was. And to have, so the way Paul Cook plays, he plays 4-2-3-1, usually signs all of his mates. So you might get loads of good players that, he's had at every club since. But yeah, honestly, I really think if Ipswich Town had Paul Cook in League One, that is the best managerial appointment in League One by a long shot. But the worry for Wigan fans is that we have Liam Richardson, who all throughout his career has been Paul Cook's assistant manager. And Liam Richardson is essentially a second mouthpiece. He's borderline a second manager. For us, he's the only thing that's steadying the ship. All Wigan fans, collectively crapped one because we thought that Ipswich were going to... Ipswich might end up taking our assistant manager to be... Oh, no, our manager, sorry, to be your assistant manager. If you do, you'll end up with a fantastic assistant manager, because I'm not here to talk about Wigan. But yeah, that would be the full package. Ipswich Paul Cook would storm League One because he should be in a high-end Championship job, in my opinion.
Well, Hugh, thank you very much for joining me from the PO4 podcast, getting you to talk about Pompey and Paul Cook's connection there, the manager there. He helped you win the League Two title back then. Some insight from yourself. What is Paul like as a manager, and also his football?
I think it's a really exciting appointment, actually, for Ipswich fans. So I know I've been seeing out there on Twitter, people have got some sort of mixed reactions. And I suppose for Ipswich fans, it's sort of natural with all the problems you've been going through with Paul Lambert and not thinking you can get rid of that contract. But Paul Cook comes in as a manager for Portsmouth when he came into us. Pompey the season before came, I think it's 16th in the league. The squad had been decimated from our financial troubles. And he came in, he looked at that squad in May 2015, and he looked at it and was like, I need to rebuild this squad from the ground up, really. Now, Paul Cook has a particular way of playing, a style of playing, a philosophy, And what he did is he sort of came out and decided, right, this is what we need to do. This is how I play. This is my ethos. The players he didn't want, that didn't fit into that ethos, he got rid of. So his ethos is about passing football, progressive football, build up football. And that's how it's attacking through that way. Okay. So what he did is he came in for a 4-2-3-1 formation, and some Ipswich fans might groan at that idea, thinking, you know, that's a play it long up to the striker, etc. But Paul Cook's not about that at all. That's you can forget that idea if the Ipswich fans are worrying about that. Okay. He comes in, he brings in some passing centre backs into the club. That's one of the first things he does. He brings in Christian Burgess, who comes in from Peterborough. It's a good deal. We spend a little bit of money on him. I think it's 300k or something, but he then becomes part of our integral season. And apart from we sold him last season because he went on a free transfer to Belgium. Fair enough. But you have him at the back there. He gets Matt Clark in on loan, you know, who you guys will already know. He then eventually becomes a permanent transfer as well in the Adam Webster deal. Again, a very good centre-back. And if Ipswich fans haven't been following his progress, he's gone off to Brighton, gone to Derby, and he was their player of the season last year, playing in a team with Wayne Rooney. So he's an excellent talent spotter. And then he knew what to do from there. He brings in an anchor man in midfield in Michael Doyle, and he brings in a player he knows in Gary Roberts, who, again, you'll know if you follow Ipswich again. Follow Wigan. So he brings him in to be the sort of the playmaker in the middle and get things moving. So Paul Cook knew what he wanted to do when he came in. He comes in with a firm plan to play attacking, you know, possession-based football, and he implemented that on Portsmouth.
Of course, he's a scouser. We've had another scouser in Paul Jewell, who also managed Wigan. In terms of his character and he's in press conferences, Paul Lambert's been an interesting one with press conferences this season. So what can you say about that?
Well, he's a fiery character. It's not going to be a very yes/no sort of, you know, boring answers. You know, Kenny Jackett's the absolute opposite of Portsmouth. It's like trying to get blood out of a stone to try and get emotion out of Kenny. Paul Cook's a fiery character. He had some run into the media at Portsmouth. You know, he thinks his way is the best way to play. Criticism of that, you know, he would come back and he would say to the press, you know, you don't know what you're on about. He would answer back to them. He did have couple of fiery moments, even with the Portsmouth fans, because you have to remember that it was a real late run which get Portsmouth promoted from that League Two promotion campaign. In fact, we went up on goal difference, if people don't know that, on the last day of the season with a 6-1 win against Cheltenham. Was it Chesterfield? Cheltenham, yeah. So Paul Cook did have a lot of run-ins. He was criticised for not having a plan B, and that will be something I'll be interested to see at Ipswich. If his progressive football isn't working, and I think maybe this is more applicable to when you play teams lower down in the division, teams who will come to Portman Road and set up for a draw, teams that sit back, park the bus, inverted commas. That was what we sort of struggled then to sort of break teams down. And Cook in one game, because fans kept saying, we need to play two up front. This isn't working sometimes. When we're playing these teams, you need to change it. And he played a 3-5-2 formation. It didn't work. And he came out and said, well, tried it. Look, doesn't work. We're going back to my way of doing things. So that is the sort of character Paul Cook is.
Well, next up, I'm joined by good old Jay Whittle from the Manchester Evening News, correspondent for Wigan Athletic. I'm going to get your take on Paul Cook. Is possibly going to get appointed town manager. Some insight from yourself. What is Paul like as a character?
I think Paul Cook is one of the best managers you can get in the Football League. To be honest with you, his track record speaks for itself. You look through his managerial CV, he's won promotions at Chesterfield, Portsmouth, Wigan Athletic. If you look at his track record, everywhere he's been, he's improved the club he's been at. Wigan Athletic, when he took over, we just got relegated to League One. The next managerial appointment was really important for us because we was at that stage where, obviously, we've seen Sunderland and we've seen, I don't want to use it as an example, but over the years, we've seen teams struggle to get out of League One, who you'd probably expect to get promoted. So Paul Cook came into Wigan Athletic of the May 2017 and he really hit the town running, so to speak. He's someone who, when he walks into a training ground or a general room, he just lights up the place. His personality is very infectious. I've been very fortunate to work close with him through my work at Wigan Evening Post, and also he's been a guest on my podcast on 2 occasions. And to see him obviously give up his time when he really doesn't have to speak to a podcast and do things of that nature, it just shows the kind of character he is. And I think the thing that stands out for me about Paul Cook is man management, because if you ask any footballer who's played under Paul Cook, they'll say that they really enjoyed their time playing under him, because once you earn his trust, he'll always back you all the way. And that's something Carl Naismith said to me a couple of weeks ago when I interviewed him. He said, although Carl Naismith played under Paul Cook at Portsmouth and Wigan Athletic, and he said once he gained Paul Cook's trust, he was one of the best managers he's ever played under. I've been shocked, to be honest, that he's been out of work for so long since resigning from Wigan Athletic in last August. But, Ipswich would have a real coup on their hands if they could appoint Paul Cook, because for me, he's one of the best managers I've seen at Wigan Athletic in my lifetime, because he really united the town. He broke records as well during his season in League One. We had the most amount of away wins off memory. We had a record league win, which was 7-0, which he beat actually last season when we was in administration against Hull City 8-0. So it kind of just shows what kind of man he is. And through that administration too, we've had the highs of the promotions. We had the highs of beating Manchester City, the FA Cup quarter-final, when there was a force being everyone. I remember reading back about that game, and Paul Cook had a meeting with his players saying how would we go about beating this team? Sergio Aguero, Kevin De Bruyne, Leroy Sané, Bernardo Silva, all on top form. And they just burst out laughing. And somehow they masterminded one of the biggest upsets in FA Cup history. So it is something that is so special. And Paul Cook is, if you mention Paul Cook to the majority of Wigan fans, will only have happy memories. You can't impress everyone. There will be Wigan fans who may have criticisms of Paul Cook, but that's just football. It's a game of opinions. And personally, I think Paul Cook was excellent. And in administration, his leadership from the front was unbelievable. He really rallied the team together. You would not think, if you was an outsider not knowing what was going on, you would not know the colours in administration. The performances were huge. And towards the end of that season, I believe he won 12 out of the last 15 games, keeping 10 clean sheets, and that's phenomenal at championship level. And I believe if the administration didn't happen, and I know a lot of players believe this, I believe we could have been challenging for promotion this season in an alternative universe. But it's not great to dwell on what could have happened. And I always believe in football, in management, if you're playing, you're only as good as your last 6 months. And in Paul Cook's last 6 months were absolutely phenomenal at Wigan Athletic.
And final thing to add, really, is any other words you want to say to fans? Should we be excited? We've had a few Pauls appointed recently, Paul Hurst, Paul Lambert. So it's the third Paul in the last few years. We had Paul Jewell back, another Scouser as well. Of course,
another Wigan legend, Paul Jewell.
Well, yeah. So, any final things to add to give fans excited? Of course, we're currently just outside the playoffs. Hopefully, we'll get into the playoffs under Paul Cook.
Yeah, you will more. I mean, if I'm going out on a whim and making rash predictions, then Ipswich fans can come for me. I would say you would, with Paul Cook at the helm, you would storm it, because Paul Cook is not. I mean, no, as a supporter of a League One club, so obviously no disrespect to Ipswich, Paul Cook is not a League One manager. He's done really well in League One, but he's got one. He should be at a Championship club, and the amount of Championship clubs that have snubbed him because last season he has a relegation on his record. But he doesn't really, because as a manager, he finished 13th. The club was relegated because of off-field antics, so he shouldn't be judged by that relegation. He finished 13th in a Wigan side that won for the back half of it. None of the players were getting paid. And players were getting, players didn't want to play as well, because you don't want to play if you're not getting paid and then get injured and then you don't get to move on. I would put all my money into Paul Cook it would be a huge improvement to Ipswich. And the style of play that he has is attractive to watch as well. On the most part, like, you will enjoy watching football. I remember keeping up with Ipswich when you had Mick McCarthy, and there was a lot of moaning because Mick McCarthy doesn't play the nicest football. Paul Cook is the complete opposite of that. You will enjoy it, and I reckon like a player like James Norwood, who I remember at Tranmere, being a decent player at Tranmere, will bring out the best in that, in my opinion.
Of course, it's not been a great season for Town. Lambert out and the protests. Do you think Town fans should be excited about Paul Cook? To finish this video off with yourself, would you say it's time to be excited?
Yeah, I think it is. I think obviously it's not worked out as planned for Paul Lambert. He couldn't keep him in the Championship. He couldn't take him up he couldn't take Ipswich up at the first time of asking, and I struggled to see that he would have done it the second time had he had stayed at the club. Pompey have already been there twice. I've been there twice this season. The FA Cup exit, and then a few weeks later in the league. And the second time it was Ipswich's first game back with fans, and Ipswich lost that day again. And fans are a lot of boos, and it's a shame really, because fans returning, win, lose or draw, it's supposed to be such a special occasion for all clubs. Best day I've had covering Pompey this season was the day fans came back here, and that's supposed to be so special. And to see Ipswich fans, so disgruntled at the situation with Lambert on their return was a real shame, really. But I know that for a long time they've been wanting Lambert to go, and now he has gone, and they're going to get a name in like Cook. There's plenty of reason to be excited. There's so many clubs in League One that are far too big to be at this level. Ipswich are one, Portsmouth are another, and then you've got teams like Sunderland and Hull as well. None of them should be down here. And yeah, with Cook, you like to think that Ipswich, should Cook stay there and could do well, Ipswich won't be in League One for too much longer, I don't think.